Welcome to Salesforce Knowledge Article Management Training. In this video, we'll review article writing best practices, ASU writing standards, which adhere to the AP Style Writing Guide, and formatting issues. We'll take a look at some examples of articles in Salesforce and how the best practices and ASU writing standards are applied. But first, let's review how we might determine what type of an article to write. We want to think of the most common and most frequently asked questions by our students. Most of you probably already have a frequently asked questions section on your website, or maybe a list of frequently asked questions by students in your unit, or on your internal network. An article can be an informational article, a how-to question, or stepping someone through a process. Often the process and the how-to articles can be phrased as a question in the title of your article. Let's take a look at how to write knowledge articles using best practices and ASU writing style guidelines. And then we'll take a look at some examples in Salesforce. When we're writing a knowledge article, we want to be clear and concise, factual and engaging. And to help you create these knowledge articles, we recommend following the ASU Writing Style Guide in your training manual. In your training manual, it'll be a little more specific about what exactly it means by writing for the students. This means that we're writing for a general audience rather than for one very familiar with ASU. So we want to assume that the student you're writing for is new to the university. You want to pick a good title. An article's title should try to describe what the article's about. The important thing is for the first few words to be as understandable as possible, with key words that are important. Be specific and be sure to identify the department in the title if necessary. Always proofread and edit your post before submitting. Organize that article effectively, from simple to maybe more complex when trying to keep the details needed by most students near the top of that article. And when doing step-by-step instructions, the main thing to keep in mind to include all the actions that need to be completed in the task. Making your writing engaging by using repetition and a conversational tone are some of the techniques that you can use to engage that student. Take a look at some of the more detailed descriptions on how to provide a more engaging knowledge article by taking a look at your training guide. And remember that the content and the format reviewers in your unit will review that article before publishing. As described in earlier videos, the article approval process will ensure that the content reviewer and the format reviewer will give their feedback to some of these very specific guidelines that we just discussed. Now let's take a look at a good example of an article that demonstrates clear and concise examples of best writing practices. The article that I'm going to search for is called "How Do I Pay the Enrollment Deposit?" So I'll do a general search for a published article that I'm looking for. And then I'll highlight the article. And let's take a look at it. This is what the article looks like in its published format. But let's see what it looked like when it was first drafted. When it was first drafted, it was an article basically in the format of a paragraph. It wasn't easy to read or to follow. It hadn't been proofread for grammar. It was missing punctuation, and instructions weren't listed using bullets. My ASU wasn't hyperlinked, and there were missing virtual visual aids. So it wasn't a very easy article to follow. Let's take a look again at the completed, published article on how do I pay my enrollment deposit. You'll notice here that they used some of the guidelines. It was simple, it was concise, it's using the bullets to describe the 3 different ways that you can pay your enrollment deposit, and it also makes available to you additional hyperlinks that you can visit instead of saying click here that help you to understand a little more in depth the ways that you can pay your enrollment deposit. Now let's also take a look at how to view this article in My ASU and see how the student would see it. If a student was looking for that very article, they might, via their service center, do a search for that article. And we'll do a search on that. How do I pay for my enrollment deposit? And this is how they would see it. So basically the article is very much how we saw it in Salesforce, but it also shows us which category it's in and when it was last updated. It also provides the student with some additional information off to the right-hand side here, articles that they may find helpful, in addition to how do I pay my enrollment deposit. When we're drafting those articles, we're wanting to look at some of the more common formatting issues of drafting our article. We want to write knowledge articles with using the guidelines, but also being aware of some of the more common formatting issues, such as using the default font, numbering step instructions and using bulleted lists, using hyperlink names of websites instead of using click here, using official names of buildings which can be found on ASU maps. A good example of using these very specific formatting tools is on another article I'd like to show you. And this article is called How Do I Apply for Graduation? This article is using numbered stepped instructions, using a hyperlink, visit website instead of saying clicking here or click here. And they're also using an image to explain things that can be a great addition included to your text. So let's get started on writing your article. And one of the ways that you want to do that is just by getting started writing your draft. You want to review your article using the AP style and the best practices. You want to use the format reviewer experts that will assist you in refining the format. And remember that content and format reviewer in your unit will get back to you after reviewing your article before it's published.